Well, a good Friday morning to you, Central Georgia. Normally come here on Fridays and give you kind of a look at what we've been doing the past week and stuff of what's ahead for the weekend and specific forecasts for events. A little bit bigger fish to fry as we go into this afternoon and into the evening. So let's go ahead and break down our last day of the 7-day stretch that we have had severe weather outlooks here in Central Georgia. Going to move on over to the 9-pack so I can kind of point to some things and you guys can get a good view of what I'm talking about with everything that does pertain to this afternoon and into the early evening. So our weather impact alert, this is the third one we've had this week and hopefully going to be the last one for strong and severe storms this afternoon, the 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. window to be very specific. So within these strong and severe storms, your gusty and damaging winds are going to be probably the main factor that we're going to be talking about throughout this afternoon into the evening hours. 40 to 60 mile per hour winds are going to be possible, and with any severe thunderstorm warnings that could pop up, those winds can get above 60 miles per hour, even get closer to 70 miles per hour, which I do believe could be likely in some areas given the latest upgrade on our SPC outlook. So large hail also going to be possible. That can get up to about an inch in diameter rather, and maybe somewhere a little bit higher than that. That's going to be embedded within your heaviest pockets of rain, those heaviest downpours. So when you see us talking about it on the satellite and radar, that's going to be your very dark red colors, even some of where you see your shades of pink. Now the potential for a brief and a spin-up tornado is there once again. The chances are a little bit higher for that compared to yesterday, but also a brief spin-up tornado. Don't want to discredit it just because it says brief, just because it says spin-up. If you saw the video of what happened on I-75 yesterday with the Henry County spin-up tornado, that one did go through areas near Locust Grove and McDonough. Kind of popped up on the interstate. Everyone kind of came to a standstill in terms of the traffic, but it also did produce some damage and even resulted into injuries of some folks up there. So really can't discredit it. That still would be a tornado that has winds of about 70, 75 miles per hour. And if you get into EF1 territory, it can get up to about 90 miles per hour. So that's kind of the worst case. Obviously, we hope, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that that doesn't end up playing out. But we'll go over the potential for where we could see a brief and a spin-up tornado today. So all of those things have constituted our weather impact alert for today. Along with this, we've had it in place over the past 24 hours or so because everyone was in a level 2 out of 5 risk for severe weather. But as of about 8:30 in the morning a couple hours ago, we've seen this orange shaded area over on the right side of your screen. That's going to be a level 3 out of 5 risk, an enhanced risk for areas in East Central Georgia. So that includes areas like parts of Hancock County, Sparta, Sandersville, up in all of Washington County under this risk. Eastern portions of Wilkinson County, all of Johnson County, including Wrightsville, even Dublin, up in this northern sector of Lawrence County, and it also probably stretches to areas like Dexter, Dudley, down into Cadwell. Soperton in Treutlen County, northern portions of Montgomery County and Toombs County, which is just out of the outline right here, but Vidalia very close to this. And then we do see a little bit of this shade creep over into northern Dodge and eastern Bleckley counties. So Cochran and Eastman not too far away from that level 3 risk, not necessarily in it. But whether you're in a level 3 or a level 2, you still are in a severe weather risk for this afternoon into the evening hours. There just is more confidence in a lot of the conditions being more suitable over here in this shaded area, this level 3 risk, as opposed to the level 2. And the upgrade into this level 3 risk is mainly wind driven. So there's a higher risk of some damaging wind gusts over in East Georgia, East Central Georgia, and way back up into the Carolinas. In fact, most of South Carolina does find themselves within that level 3 risk. So for your headlines as we break down the severe weather threat for today, and we'll talk a little bit about what's ahead for the weekend, but it is looking like it's going to be nice. Obviously, the main focus is going to be this afternoon and evening. So the front going to bring storms today, finally clearing out after the front does pass, and then mostly dry and below average as we head into the extended portion of your 7-day forecast. So all 4 of our sky cams, quite a different view than what we've been dealing with all morning. We've had some fog, we had some cloud cover. Well, now this isn't necessarily what you want to see right before a frontal boundary does come through. Sunshine. Obviously, I know we have had our shortage of sunshine over the past week, but this is going to contribute to continue to contribute to the warm up ahead of this frontal boundary coming. So when you get that sunshine, it's going to start to warm the surface, and as the surface does warm, that increases instability values. Those are the prime ingredients of what severe weather systems do need in order to intensify and keep rolling along. So we are going to continue to see the surface heat up as long as we do have this sunshine. So up in downtown Macon, sunshine, you can check that box. Down in Warner Robins, once again, we have sunshine. A lot of the cloud cover is not present very much anymore. Down into the Georgia National Fairgrounds and up into downtown Dublin, everyone is seeing nice and sunny skies. And it's a beautiful image to see here in the first part of your Friday. But like I said, it's probably going to have implications as we go into the afternoon and evening hours and start to prime the atmosphere ahead of that frontal boundary approaching from the north and the northwest. Now, as of recently, we've had our level 1s, we've had our level 2s for a stretch of which now today does mark 7 days in a row with a severe weather risk. A lot of the days we have not seen anything in the way of severe weather warnings. We've seen our fair share of strong thunderstorms, those special weather statements, but only maybe 1 or 2 actual severe thunderstorm warnings, which is never a bad thing. We always like to go without the severe thunderstorm warnings, but a lot of that hasn't played out how it really was supposed to or how it was anticipating to do so, because we had cloudy skies and they kind of lingered into most of the afternoon, so our temperatures weren't allowed to warm up as much as they absolutely could. We weren't allowed to get too much surface heating, so that's why activity wasn't as severe and strong in nature and intense as it was forecasted to. But as you can see, it's a story of sunshine as it does currently stand. However, our temperatures are still remaining somewhere in the 70s. So this cloud cover did break apart very recently. We're just now getting that sunshine. We can expect these temperatures to climb all the way until some more cloud cover does enter from the north and the northwest. How about the dew points? The amount of moisture we have present is going to be vital to this as well, because the frontal boundary that's driving this severe weather risk, there's a lot of lift ahead of the cold front. Well, what's it going to lift? All the moisture that we do have available at the surface, and we still have a noticeable humidity. Dew points in the 60s are still fairly noticeable. That's where you start to get into the not bad territory of not necessarily feeling really swampy and not necessarily feeling very dry whatsoever. But there are some patches of these dark green colors, especially down towards the south and the southwest here in central Georgia. You can see some dew point temperatures above the 70-degree mark. Once you get above the 70s, that's where you really start to have that muggy air that you can wear, and that's going to be a lot of surface moisture that's going to continue to be lifted as the front does pass through. And the more moisture that you have present at the surface, the higher that the cloud tops can build as that water is lifted higher up in the atmosphere. Taking a look at your feels like temperatures, pretty accurate of what the actual temperature readings are as of right now. So hopefully we can continue to keep the decent humidity and the below average temperatures around for the foreseeable future. But I do imagine we'll steadily see more humidity build back in, and we are going to see an increase in those temperatures with all the sunshine that we do currently have. But something else that's going to be a factor in the hours leading up to the actual front passing, including the hours after and a little bit into your Saturday, will be the winds. Your gustiest and your damaging winds are going to be present as the actual front does move through. That's going to be embedded within the leading edge of this line of rain, where you see those pockets of red, those pockets of pink, and that's going to be present, once again, kind of the lead indication that the front is moving through. But right now we are already seeing maybe a little bit of a gusty breeze building in. Sustained winds maybe anywhere from about 7 to 12 to 13 miles per hour. So we're seeing this blue shade build in, which is going to be the first kind of color that you do see on this winds and wind gust map. But up here to the north and the northwest behind, or kind of out of view of the graphic, but behind the banner, we do see those yellow colors. So that's going to be even gustier winds. And once you start to get into some reds and some pinks, which we'll show you in just 1 second, that's where you really get to start to see your wind gusts that can get up to 30, 40, even greater in amounts of miles per hour. So our damaging wind gusts are going to continue to build in, but they also will be present after the passage of this boundary as well. So here's your satellite and radar picture. We do have a few clouds that are trying to approach already from the north and the northwest. The sooner the better in terms of that cloud cover. That's going to continue to limit how much we heat up in terms of the temperatures. However, this frontal boundary is going to have more organization to it, and it does look like it is going to pose more of severe weather implications for most of central Georgia and way up along the Atlantic coast, South Carolina, North Carolina, those areas. As we take a bigger picture view, you can already start to see some lines of rain forming ahead of this frontal boundary beginning its push into the state of Georgia. Right now we do see our north and northwesternmost counties starting to see some rain, some heavy pockets of rain, some lower end thunderstorms. But as this does continue to progress farther down to the south and the southeast, there's going to be a lot more to work with. So we're probably going to look at activity continuing to flare up as this frontal boundary does make its way farther down to the south and the southeast, which is right in the direction of central Georgia here. So taking a look at your surface map, I did mention that this is caused by a cold front. So there are two things with this. Number one, I did just mention to you, there's going to be a lot more organization ahead of this frontal boundary as an entirety, as opposed to these MCSs, these mesoscale convective systems that have been rolling through day after day. That's driven more by upper level dynamics in the atmosphere. This is going to be at the surface, so you're going to have a lot more organization to it. In this cold front, pretty widespread, and you can see the axis of rain going ahead of that actual boundary, all the way over to states to the west and down to the southwest of us. So this is all attached to this low pressure center, and we've fallen on the southern end of stationary boundaries and low pressure centers all week long, so we've just kind of kept this warm and humid air mass in place all over the southeast. Well, the second thing that this frontal boundary is going to do, once it does pass through in its entirety, it will usher in some drier air. Hence the high pressure centers that you do see over to the west and the northwest. That's going to continue to slide over towards the east. That's going to filter in and dry our atmosphere out, so we won't have as much humidity in the forecast, which is already going to feel great. But anything that tries to pop up in terms of those heat of the day showers or storms isn't going to have a lot of surface moisture to work with. So that's why we are going to remain pretty dry for your Saturday, Sunday into next week. So there is some relief coming and something to look forward to. But before we get there, afternoon storms going to be clear and dry, something to look forward to later tonight. But that weather impact alert, we have issued it because this is something that's probably going to impact most of your days. Many of you trying to round out the short work week, ready to get into another weekend. Well, obviously, the timing of this is probably looking to come through as we get into afternoon time. So maybe trying to leave work a little bit early on Friday, that would still be the time frame that the system's moving through. Or maybe just getting off at your typical 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, that can still have implications. This line is still going to be here during that window. Remember, I highlighted 2 to 7 p.m. So it's all going to be dependent on where you are if this is going to impact you, but it is during the afternoon hours when many of you are out and about trying to head home from work and maybe heading out to run some errands and such, just getting ready for the weekend. And a high temperature of 85 is what could be in store as we have continued to see the clouds clear in nature. And as we go until about the 1 to 2 p.m. hour, that's how long we are going to continue to warm up. So let's go through the timing. Let's see what our model runs do say. And you're taking a live look at the latest run of Future View. We get updates on this occasionally throughout each and every day. Typically we get one sometime around 10 to 10:30 in the morning. This is 2 p.m. This frontal boundary gaining a lot of organization, and you can see some pockets of heavier rain enveloped within that. So this is going to begin its push into central Georgia, maybe around our north and northwesternmost counties around that 2 p.m. hour. Now this is one model run. This is the graph model, what we typically show you on each of our weather hits during every show. We'll go over another model run here just shortly, but let's go over and see what the graph has to say first out of all of these. Continuing to push down into central Georgia, making its presence known in areas like Macon, over into Twiggs County, moving into northern Houston County, areas like Warner Robins, getting close to Perry, all the way up into areas like Washington County, Hancock County. So it's going to kind of be sloped a little bit down to the left, I guess you could say. So kind of an upward slope associated with this frontal boundary. It could just be leaving areas like Hancock County, and directly over to the west of Hancock County, it's already dry out of central Georgia. It would just be impacting areas down over towards our western half in central Georgia. So you see Taylor County right there. So more than likely you are going to start to see the impacts of this if you live over to the west in central Georgia a tad bit earlier than areas over down towards the east would see it. Let's go flash forward to 5 p.m. and we do see breaking in this line right here, which wouldn't be a bad sign whatsoever, but this is still a pretty continuous line of at least some rainfall, maybe getting some pockets of lighter rain, and consider yourself lucky if you do receive any of that. But still some pockets of some heavy rain and some thunderstorms enveloped within this, trying to push out. This is 6 p.m. most of central Georgia is already clear. You live in Macon, you live in Jasper County, up in Forsyth, up in Warner Robins, you're good to go by 6 p.m. The severe threat has already ended. Once you get that leading edge of the heaviest rain and the gustiest winds to leave your vicinity, it's probably only going to last roughly about 20 to 30 minutes, those heaviest impacts. Then after that, you're going to be left with a little bit of residual rain on the backside, but then you are really going to be clear. So once that severe weather threat does end, it's going to be for areas farther to the north a little bit earlier than areas farther to the south. You are good to go for any of your Friday night plans. Just maybe grab the windbreaker because it is still going to be a tad bit breezy. You can still see these wind arrows a little bit long and yellow in color, and that's going to indicate some gusty winds. But if you live in our southernmost counties, Chris County, Wilcox County, Dodge, Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery counties, you're still dealing with the implications of this front. But as we flash forward to about 7 to 8 p.m., this front has completely cleared down to the south and the southeast, and all of central Georgia is virtually remaining dry. You can't rule out maybe seeing a backside wraparound sprinkle or two, but nothing that's going to be anywhere as substantial as that main leading edge of this. So we'll flash forward all the way just past midnight on Saturday. Eventually the cloud cover is short to follow in terms of getting out of the picture as well. But let's go over the high resolution model. The timing is a little bit different with this. We can see it trying to move in as early as about 2 p.m., but having more widespread impacts as you go to about 3 p.m., so trending a little bit later than the graph model according to the HRRR, the high res model that we refer to it as. Then we go into 4 p.m. Some pockets of pink popping up. That's going to be even heavier rain than your darkest reds that you can get. And right now it looks to be north of Macon, northeast of Macon, and you will kind of see this correlate a little bit with the severe weather risk that is in play with the level 3. So most of the rain is around 6 p.m. right here, mainly in our easternmost counties, but this line could fall apart and really lose its steam over to the western end of it. I'm not too sure if that will happen. I'm not really buying that considering we are still in a level 2 in areas farther over to the west. I think we'll still be dealing with at least some strong thunderstorms enveloped within this line. But if you have nothing in the way of rain courtesy of this, once again, consider yourself lucky because it is going to pack quite a punch in other areas over to the east of us and in east central Georgia. 7 p.m., still some rain lingering about. I think the high res model right here is kind of lingering and hinting at a bit of a stall with this, having a little bit of a slower motion through our south and southeasternmost counties, where you still see areas like Lawrence County, Trutland County, down into Dodge County, Bleckley, Pulaski. Those areas are still receiving some pockets of heavy rain, some thunderstorms at the 8 p.m. hour when the graph model was saying that we should clear out in nature. But nonetheless, even if it is trending a couple hours behind, still by about Friday night, late tonight, around 10 p.m., you are going to be smooth sailing. Maybe just our south and southeasternmost counties still dealing with some implications. And then a little bit of a tease towards your Saturday, looking nice and dry, mostly sunny. That's going to be a welcome change. So the timing of the impacts, kind of taking all the models into account and guidance from the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center, this is a rough timeline about when I expect some areas to see certain impacts. So notice you will see these boxes with outline times today. However, these are not necessarily changed. I didn't change the actual time of it, so I do apologize for that, but I'll make a correction to it. You will see the shaded areas corresponding to the box where it is shaded. So before 2 p.m., areas to the north and the northwest of us. Now right here I've highlighted 1 to 3 p.m. This is going to be 2 to 4 in this lighter blue shade that it does say 1 to 3 p.m. So that includes areas Upson County, Monroe County, Bibb County, Jones County, up into Baldwin County, over into Washington County, Wilkinson, Twiggs, Northern Houston, Peach, Crawford. Not exactly set in stone, but still a pretty rough timeline. Most of the population here in central Georgia should feel the impacts, not 1 to 3, but 2 to 4 later on in the afternoon. Then we go down into this lighter shade of blue, kind of the cyan color. That's where you'll find Dublin, Cochran, Montezuma, Vienna, Eastman, over into Soperton, all of those counties immediately to the south of the kind of royal blue shade that we do have. This box that says 3 to 5 p.m. is going to go for these counties in that cyan kind of color right there, and that's also going to be 4 to 6, not 3 to 5, so a little bit of an hour of fluctuation right there. And then after 6 p.m., still impacting our southernmost counties. Parts of Crisp, Wilcox, down into Telfair, Dodge, Wheeler, Montgomery, and getting over into Toombs County as well. That's going to be starting around 6 p.m., mainly going to be between the 6 to 7 p.m. hour, maybe lingering a little bit past 7 for those counties in our far south, and then everyone is clear of the severe weather threat. But once that leading edge, like I said, gets past you, you are going to be in the all clear. So if you fall in this 2 to 4 p.m. window up here, obviously areas towards the bottom of the shade are going to be impacted closer to 4. Areas at the top of the shade impacted closer to 2 p.m. in nature. So areas like Macon, we could be in the all clear by the time we get into about 3:30, maybe even 3 o'clock at the very earliest. After that, heaviest rain and those gusty winds do pass you. So let's talk about the tornado potential. I have highlighted the risk for that, and I came onto the stream and I immediately told you it's not something that we should take for granted, even if it is something like a brief spin-up tornado, those EF0s and EF1s that we've had our fair share confirmed here over the last couple of months. So as you take a look at the scale up here, I hope this is pretty visible right here, but if not, you will see these kind of light gray shaded areas, more so of a white color. That's going to fall on the very lowest end of the scale right there. So like I said, low potential, however, it is non-zero, and it still is enough to produce something like a spin-up, EF0 or an EF1 tornado. And we will see that most of that is going to be confined more so all over central Georgia right here as we take it to about 3 p.m. But it also is mainly going to be confined over to the east, as you will see parameters over here to the west start to fall apart as we progress in time throughout the afternoon. But then going into 6 p.m., it does look like the tornado potential really does decrease. Don't take this as a dead certain forecast right here. This is just what the high-res model that we were just looking at does have to say about the conditions that can be suitable for tornado development, mainly instability, things like shear and such. There are values that you can combine together, and it can come out as an output in the model, and it can just be one singular value that you are looking at. So that's what this kind of tornado potential graphic is. But you will notice that maybe some shades of even light green, so that's getting closer to the medium portion of the scale right there. That's going to be up into South Carolina to our north and our northeast. And as we go into the nighttime hours, that tornado potential, it can still be felt maybe down in the northern end of the peninsula of Florida, and it will be present up the Atlantic coast into areas of the Carolinas. So let's talk about some of the wind gusts. You will probably see your fair share of wind gusts. Let's see if I did throw some pauses on there. Okay. So what we're looking out for are these reds and these pinks on this graphic. This is 1 p.m. heading into this afternoon, but we're already feeling a steady breeze before that line gets to us. Some gusts up to 20 or 25 miles per hour already possible on the front side of this boundary, and that's going to be kind of because of the pressure gradient. You're going to start to get centers of high pressure, centers of low pressure that do get closer together, and that's when you get your gustier winds. This is going into 3 p.m. So as the front continues to make its push through, you'll see only a slight uptick, maybe 29 mile per hour gusts here in Macon. But you may say, Alex, the pink is right here in central Georgia. Why does Atlanta have a wind gust that's even higher than that? That's because this is going to be very localized within those sectors and those sections of some thunderstorms. So it's going to be maybe not reading at the specific locations that we do have for these. So maybe areas like West Bibb County, over at Lake Tobosoffke, you could have your severe thunderstorm wind gusts 40, 50, 60 miles per hour. However, downtown Macon, we would only have wind gusts maybe up to 30 miles per hour. So it's going to be within the heaviest pocket of rain and also going to be on that leading edge. So going to have to kind of fine tune that in real time in terms of what the actual wind gusts are going to be. And then you can see Cordele gets a little bit of a darker color, some of those reds and pinks there that are close to the observation station, maybe 37 mile per hour gusts. But of course, we will probably see gusts that are going to be a lot gustier than that, and they can be damaging once they get closer to the 50, the 60 mile per hour territory. Typically, we get some special weather statements when the winds and the wind gusts get up to about 40 and 50 miles per hour, and then 58 mile per hour winds and greater are going to be your severe thunderstorm warnings. That's just one of the things that can trigger a severe thunderstorm warning. You could also have hail that is 1 inch in diameter or greater in size, and that would trigger a severe thunderstorm warning. So you just need one of the other in order to get a severe thunderstorm warning, but just letting you know that strong thunderstorms can still pack quite the punch. Going into tonight, if you have any Friday night plans, it's still going to be a bit breezy. not necessarily going to be cool whatsoever, but it is going to be a pleasant breeze. It's actually going to be trying to usher in some slightly drier air into our forecast, but even going into your Saturday afternoon, still expect a steady breeze with some gusts that could be up to about 20 miles per hour. So let's talk about that humidity. We continue to see this value right here, whichever day is first on this. Normally it's kind of hovering somewhere in the 60s, the dew point temperatures in the 60s, which is a noticeable humid. However, each day that passes and as that day gets closer, we continue to see that uptick closer to where dew point temperatures are in the 70s. So we're going to have a mix of some really muggy air, and then it won't be quite as humid in some areas, kind of a mix of that dark green and that light green on the dew points map as we go throughout this afternoon. But one thing is for certain, we will see a downtick for your Saturday. Dew point temperatures getting much more pleasant. You can see that's kind of indicating some comfortable air, not the air that you can wear whatsoever. And we might see high temperatures that are still about 5 degrees below average. So low humidity, below average temperatures, and a steady breeze that isn't blowing that muggy air right in your face. Going to be a great weekend for sure, Saturday and Sunday. And then we see it fluctuate as we go into next week, but obviously not really the concern right now. We'll flash it through your long range models just to show you that as we go into the beginning of next week, looking dry for Monday night, looking dry for Tuesday, going into Wednesday, still looking dry, maybe a couple of clumps of moisture that could indicate some light showers in nature. But once we get to Thursday and Friday next week, we could be looking at some more widespread rain in nature, but that problem is a week out. We have a problem that's a couple hours out in order to kind of let you know what you need to do. So your weather impact alert, to sum all of that information I just gave you, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's when you need to pay attention to the radar, especially if you are planning on heading home from work or heading out and about, maybe trying to run some errands and such, maybe having a pool party or something. You may want to think otherwise. Take a look at the radar, see where that leading edge of that heaviest rain and those gustiest winds are. If they're maybe a county or two away from you, that's probably a good indication that you need to go ahead and head indoors for at least 30 minutes to an hour, ride out the heaviest impacts, and then after that gets through you, you will be good to go for the rest of your night. So I promise it's not going to take up all of your Friday night plans, but that's the window I want you to pay attention to. Closer to 7 p.m. if you live farther to the south, and closer to 2 p.m. if you live farther up to the north. The impact is going to come from strong and severe storms that will have damaging wind gusts. They can have some large hail within them. Obviously, frequent cloud to ground lightning, that's always present with a thunderstorm no matter what. Pockets of heavy downpours, and including the risk of a brief spin-up tornado. It's there. Chances aren't very high. However, the chances weren't very high for areas of North Georgia in recent days, and we have seen it come to fruition. Probably about 4 to 5 confirmed tornadoes back up in North Georgia, areas that may have not even found themselves in a severe weather risk whatsoever. So what you need to do is have a way to receive possible alerts and warnings, whether that's your weather radio, whether that's going to be your code red alerts that you get sent to your cell phone, or you could just use our 13 WMAZ app and we'll send out the alerts in real time to you. Stay up to date for changes. I don't believe much is going to change between now and this afternoon. However, if the front isn't producing too many warnings like what we've seen as of recent days, then just consider it a blessing. We don't take these level 3 risks very lightly whatsoever, and neither should you. But obviously, if the weather isn't as active as it is actually forecasted to be, it is never a bad thing whatsoever, because we know the bad weather can have implications in terms of damages and potential injuries, like we saw yesterday with the Henry County tornado. But stay up to date for changes. More so, I would definitely hone this in, have a way to receive those alerts and make plans to be inside when that line is expected to finally move through your area. We could see it move in maybe an hour earlier. We could see it move in maybe an hour later. So obviously, give or take with that weather impact alert timing, maybe move it up to 1 p.m. if it does start to move into our northernmost counties around then. Or if it moves in around 3 p.m., then obviously it would probably end closer to 8 or 9 p.m. as opposed to the 7 p.m. hour. Taking a look at your 7-day forecast, that is really the one blemish that we have. We have some minuscule rain chances for Sunday, and as we go into Wednesday and Thursday next week, the rain chances do get a bit better. But the big story will be back to the 90s. We'll have humidity back in the forecast. Definitely going to feel like summer for the first couple of days of June. Actually, for the first couple of days, we'll actually be below average, some lower humidity. So that's what you have to look forward to. Gorgeous Saturday, gorgeous most of Sunday with the exception of a sprinkle or two. But once we get through this afternoon into tonight, we will be smooth sailing for the rest of your weekend. And I was mentioning that you want to keep an eye on the radar. Well, you can do that with us. 13 WMAZ Plus, we have this 24/7 live Doppler radar stream. So this is going to have specific views of all of central Georgia, the northern half, the southern half, as this front does move through in real time. This is a screenshot right here, so it's not in motion like the one is on our 24/7 stream. You'll get specific temperature readings, what the forecast is, hour by hour throughout your day for specific locations. You do see areas like, actually it's right here on the actual screen, so we're doing a little bit of the double L bar right here. We have Milledgeville on my screen right here. Warner Robins is currently popping up here on the bottom of your stream. So this is a great tool in order to utilize real-time weather. Maybe there's not any thunderstorm warnings going on. Maybe there are some thunderstorm warnings going on. Well, obviously you can find our coverage here on 13 WMAZ Plus or Facebook or on YouTube. And along with that, if we are in showtime or there is anything of a tornado warning, we're going to cut straight into air and make sure that you are properly informed on the latest warnings. But if we don't have any warnings, you hear it getting pretty messy outside, great tool to utilize what's going on near you or right there around you. Because like I said, we will go on for the warnings and keep you updated with those severe weather warnings, but we can have our fair share of strong thunderstorms that obviously we don't have enough manpower to really keep track of each and every single thunderstorm where it is. But be happy for that, because that means it's just a strong thunderstorm as opposed to having severe weather implications. But still, if you hear it getting messy outside, you hear thunder roaring, just make plans to go indoors. Obviously, staying inside and riding out that heaviest impact window of about 30 minutes, maybe even a little bit less than that, you should be good to go after that, and stay updated with our coverage as we do track this as it moves in all throughout the afternoon and evening hours, and utilize this live Doppler stream radar. So you can hop off the stream right after I get done talking in about 15 seconds, and then you can go head over to this live 24/7 Doppler stream on your demand. So thank you for tuning in. We'll be back at midday giving you another update on our severe weather this afternoon. We'll be doing live streams throughout the afternoon and then covering it as the actual line does finally move through. 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. is that window I'm still continuing to highlight. And by the time we head just past dinner time, we'll take that weather impact alert away and we can just talk good news for Saturday and Sunday.